Hi, I'm Mia Friedman and you're listening to No Filter, Australia's #1 interview podcast. If you open up a fashion magazine in Australia, you'll most likely be greeted by a group of size 6 to 8 models, white, skinny, probably around 17, 18. They'll be smiling or grimacing back at you. Sure, they're beautiful and the clothes they're wearing are amazing, but they only represent maybe 20% of the population, probably less. And this is what model, agent and soon-to-be author Chelsea Bonner is trying to change, one body-positive model at a time. She's the daughter of former top model Nola Clarke and the guy who used to fly the helicopter in Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, Tony Bonner. Chelsea was born into what looked like the perfect Aussie blonde family. But behind the garden gate, things were not always as glamorous in the Bonner household as they seemed from the outside. Then when she hit puberty, she developed a booty and boobs. Chelsea wanted to be a model like her mum, but she was told that she was just too fat. And what followed was a baptism by fire into the world of modelling. Chelsea was exposed to diet pills, lettuce leaves, and a whole lot of eating disorders. And she knew that she had to try and make a difference in the industry in which she was determined to work in, and the industry which told her that she quite literally didn't fit in. So what's it like growing up with an alcoholic, famous father? How do you start up your own modelling agency? And how do you represent 80% of the population and make women feel good about themselves? Here's Chelsea Bonner. It's not often that I interview someone whose father was my first crush. Before I even knew what a crush was, I was probably about 7. But he was just a dreamboat on Skippy, your dad.
I
you
know.
probably hear that a lot.
All the time.
Is that weird?
It's weird, kind of. But I kind of get it too because I'm a model agent. So I can look back at those photos of him at that age and think, yeah, do you know what? I can see why, people were obsessed with him. So, yeah, but it made school pickups and drop-offs, impossible. It was like ninja style. So
because his level of fame was extraordinary.
Mum and dad in those days, in my sort of primary school into early high school days, were the Brad and Angelina of Australia.
Yeah.
They were everywhere. They were in every magazine. They were the beautiful socialite couple and. My dad's always had a really cool dress sense. He still does at 74. He's always wearing something, cool and groovy and on-trend, and he loves all that stuff. So he's always in the papers being written up as, with all these velvet 70s jackets on and everything.
And he posed nude for Cleo. He was a centerfold.
Yes. Yeah.
That's got to be awkward when you're a teenage girl.
It's still
or a young
awkward
girl.
now.
Yeah, it's still awkward now.
Yeah.
It's funny because there are those couples that are really iconic, like Cameron Daddo and Alison Bray.
Yeah.
Would be someone that if you're over 40 would really resonate. They would they're kind of that equivalent,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So it's the top model of Australia.
Cameron,
and
he's just the best. He's such a
dreamboat dad.
Yeah, he's the coolest guy. Yeah.
And I suppose when people say, what's it like growing up with famous parents, I mean, you've only got one set of parents, so it's not like you had any other thing to compare it to.
No, I didn't. I mean, I kind of knew as I got older, I kind of knew our life was different, but not really what a normal life was. So I didn't really sort of, put it together until I was in sort of last year of primary school, really. And that's when, people start getting really mean, particularly girls. Early high school was torture for me. Mum had to pull me out of my first school because I used to get beaten up all the time. And
really? I would have imagined that if you had really famous parents, like famous for something good, like being gorgeous and being on television and on magazine covers, that everyone would want to suck up to you.
No, it was kind of the opposite. It was really like, she thinks she's so good, type thing. And I really didn't think I was just not like that. I've never been like that. And it was just a bunch of older girls. They were in year 11 and 12 and I was in year 7. And they just, they used to throw me up against the lockers and it was just high school was torture for me. It was really rough. So
you were the eldest of 3 girls?
Yes.
How much younger are your sisters than you?
So Sky's 18 months younger and Hannah's 5 years. Yeah.
A lot of people mistakenly assume that if you're famous, you're rich and
Yes.
successful and secure. But
Yeah.
that's not the case with actors and models, is it?
Not at all, and particularly in Australia, and a lot of people don't understand that. In America, they've had royalties set up for 40 years, but here in Australia, things like points and royalties and things is a very new thing in our business. So, like for Dad, for instance, he has never been paid a cent since he finished Skippy, but the production company has continued. That show still shows everywhere around the world. It's Skippy's on some television set somewhere, Germany, India,
and he gets
everywhere.
nothing for
Nothing.
it.
None of them do. Nothing. The merchandising, like they just did one a few years ago, a DVD set, collector's item set of Tony Bonner's favourite episodes without even asking him.
Oh, wow.
And they're selling all this merchandise off the back of the people who made the show, but they've never paid them $1 for it.
Was he doing the show when you were old enough to be on set, or had it finished
No,
by the time you were born?
Yeah, he was like 23 when he did the show, and he was like 33 when I was born. So it was, but it was still the show, you know, even when I was a kid. So
And by that time, he was actively, as most working actors do, looking for work.
Yeah.
Tell me about the phone between 4 and 5 in the afternoon.
oh my
every day.
God, yeah, it was just so full on.
And why is that?
Well, back then there was no mobiles, obviously, so it was a landline. That
Gather
was it.
round, kiddies.
Yeah. There was no phone. And that's when the agencies would call with your jobs or bookings for the next day or for the next week, or that last hour of every workday was when all that negotiation through the day then got rung through. So the tone in the household was really dependent. You know, our nights were really dependent on what happened in that hour. So it was a really intense hour, you know, of our lives every afternoon.
So would you get home from school with a knot in your stomach?
Yeah, we would have this like constant anxiety, and you know, obviously, if it was a great booking or something, it was fine. The rest of the night was good, and if it wasn't a great booking, it was not a good night. Dad was an alcoholic then, and he's always struggled a bit with his self-esteem. You know, my grandfather was very violent as well. You know, he grew up without a lot of self-esteem, so the drinking for him sort of, I don't know, became like a painkiller, I guess. Yeah, so if it was bad news, it could end up in a 3-day binge. So, you know, it was rough. It wasn't an easy childhood. But then, you know, everyone looked at the photos of us in the magazines as perfect blonde family, and you know, these perfect little kids, and we had to get up every day and just pretend it didn't happen or wasn't happening, and just, you know, get through the day and whack a smile on your face and keep going.
How much of that do you think comes from also being the eldest of 3 and having to be the one that reassured them when Dad came home wasted?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, and my sisters say that they always felt that I'd keep them safe, you know, and they were very grateful for that.
Your dad ended up going to rehab. What prompted that?
He nearly died. He got pneumonia and pleurisy in his lungs, and they took him into St Vincent's, and the doctor came into him and said, if you don't stop drinking, one more drink could kill you. So you just have to stop. And so he stayed in there and did the rehab program, and he hasn't had a drink since.
So what on earth made you decide to want to start modelling?
Well,
was it because of it's what you knew?
Yeah, exactly. To me, home life was so bad around that time, around that 14-year age. That was like crisis point for us as a family and for Dad's drinking. And in my head, I was like, I'll just go be a model, you know. I'll get paid really well. I'll be able to leave home and get out of this mess. And that was sort of, you know, my initial thoughts. But then, you know, I didn't realise that, you know, having boobs and a booty was, I mean, I was tiny. I was, you know, tall and a size 10, but I had, you know, and they just said to me, oh, come back when your shape settles down. I was like,
when your shape settles down.
That's a nice way of saying you're fat. And I was so confused because I was wearing my mum's outfit. My mum was like a supermodel. She was on the cover of every magazine. And so in my head, in my 14-year-old head, I just couldn't. I was like, but I'm in my mum's outfit. So I'm clearly not too big to be a model. Everything fits me, but I wasn't the right shape.
She talks about you being a very different shape to her.
Yes, yeah.
Which is really interesting. And you were obviously aware of that too, because she was sort of tall and slim.
Yep.
And you just had these boobs and
Came
this
out of
booty
nowhere. Yeah.
that she thought was extraordinary.
Yeah.
But how did you see yourself? Because little girls do compare themselves to their mums.
Yeah, you do. You can't help it. And it's just one of those things that you do. And also we lived in Melbourne with mum's side of the family, and the Clark side of the family are all very tall and most of them very naturally slim and fine-boned. That's just sort of that side of the family.
And at the same time as you were being rejected from the fashion world for having boobs, I imagine that was getting you a lot of attention from boys.
Yes, and I was really uncomfortable with that. I wasn't like a booby girl I've never been one to sort of, I don't know, it's not, it's fine, do whatever you want to do. I don't care what anyone does, but I've just never been like that. It always makes me really uncomfortable being sexualised in that way. And so...
Particularly at 14, that can be incredibly confusing, the girls who get boobs early and get this attention, not just from boys but from men.
Yes, yeah.
So you knew from watching your parents experience rejection as a model and an actor that's what you were walking into.
Yes.
And you did.
Yes.
It proved you right straight out of the gate.
Straight out of the gate, yeah.
And then when you're about 15, your family moved to Queensland.
Yes, yeah.
Which wasn't a good thing for you.
No, it wasn't a good thing for any of us, I don't think.
What was the move? Was it about a fresh start?
It was about a fresh start. Dad had just got out of rehab. My aunt Rhonda's son, James, who unfortunately passed away, had leukemia, and he was only, about 4. And Mum wanted to be near Ronnie to help
her sister.
Her, and so I think in Mum's head she thought, nice fresh start, get everyone away from all the negative stuff that we've had. Let's try and start again, and I can be close to Ronnie, and what can go wrong in this sunny, happy holiday place.
Where did you move to?
The Sunshine Coast. So it might have been a bit easier if we had moved to Brisbane or the Gold Coast, where somewhere with a bit more activity, but coming from Melbourne and being a real Melbourne girl, so I was already I was really socially active, and then we got to the Sunshine Coast and it was like, hello.
Not much to do.
Yeah. Unless you wanted to sunbake and watch your boyfriend surf. And,
buy him a Chico roll.
Yes, yeah. And it was all about who could wear the bikini the best and who could get the best tan. And I was like, oh, my God, this is emotional
and
suicide.
A very body-focused.
Such a body-focused culture.
Obviously, the further north you go, the less clothes people wear.
Yeah.
And so you started drinking at about 15?
Yeah, I started sneaking drinks out of the cupboard, and then I made older friends, as you do when you're naughty and you find people who can help you. So I had this sort of group of older friends and they were able to buy booze. And I think it was a combination of things. I was depressed because I was taken away from my normal environment, and then there was nothing to do where I was except lie on the beach and get a suntan. And it's such a huge drinking culture up there. I mean, everywhere in Australia we've got a bit of a drinking culture, but up there really is nothing else to do. So, sitting around on the beach getting drunk is pretty much,
And you did.
And we did. So, yeah, and it was... Yeah,
when did
good.
you realise it was starting to become a problem?
I was about 19 and I woke up on the floor in the bathroom one morning where I just passed out, obviously, when I got home from the nightclub. And my boyfriend at the time had put a pillow under my head and was lying next to me on the cold tiles with a blanket over us because he knew he couldn't ring the hospital because of my parents. It would end up on the front page, So he was just sort of making sure I didn't choke on any vomit or anything like that. And I woke up in the morning, I looked at him and I thought, you just got to get yourself together. You are going to turn into one of these celebrity offspring kids who ends up in rehab and just a mess in the paper all the time, flashing your knickers and falling into bushes. And so I just made a decision. I was like, that's it. I'm just not drinking anymore and I'm just going to do everything I can to... So I stopped drinking for a year. I was able to just sort of sort that out, and then I did start drinking again, but more socially. So, like on a Friday or Saturday night, I'd have a few drinks with friends and whatever. And, I've always loved a drink, love a vino. And I moved back to Melbourne.
Did you see yourself reflected in any mainstream media at that time?
No, but I was obsessed with Oprah Winfrey, and I still a little bit am, I have to say. I think she's pretty freaking amazing, that woman. I used to watch her talk about her own journey, and it gave me a lot of strength because I thought, I don't even have it half as bad as Oprah's had it, and she's managed to pull herself up and get through all of these things. So that was kind of, I know it sounds odd because we're, completely different countries, completely different age groups.
No, but she was the only woman.
She really was.
In popular culture for decades who wasn't plus size but as the butt of a joke.
Yes. Yes, that's right, yeah. And she was so interesting, and it wasn't just the size stuff and whatever, it was also the domestic abuse stuff. I really related to her on that, and I loved her honesty about her struggles as well. And, she'd lose weight and gain weight and lose weight and gain weight and lose weight and gain weight. But she's always really honest about that. She was like, well, I thought I had it worked out this time, but I don't. So.
Which is funny because now it's like the idea of oversharing is such a thing. But back then, no one was honest about the tough times and the less than pretty times.
Yeah, no, she was really, just really honest. Yeah, so she's been a bit of a hero of mine.
You started modelling again?
I did. I started as a junior agent with Greg Tyshing, who's still a great friend of mine, my first proper boss. And while I was working for him, I noticed that there was a couple of, plus size clothing labels, but they were only using, mid-30s, brunettes. There was just nobody relatable. And I was so into fashion, and I was like, God, where there's
there were no plus size bloggers.
No, God,
there were no bloggers.
There was no industry whatsoever. No. So I said to Greg, look, if I get some shots done and go on the board as a plus size model, and just whatever shoots I get, we can just take off my holiday days. And he was like, yeah, neither of us really expected it to.
So you were an agent and a model at the same time?
Yeah, that's right. So I would just take my holiday days as, if I got a good job, I'd take that holiday time out. So I never actually had holidays.
Did you see, as far as like, I want to be an agent and this is what I want to do and I want to have an agency for these kind of women and I want to make this change, or did it happen slowly?
It happened over time. I knew I wanted my own agency, but
was that about control, about being the one that made that phone call between 4 and 5?
Totally about being the person in control. Yeah, I never ever wanted to be in that situation I was in growing up, where I felt like I had no control over what was going to affect my life. I wanted to be the one in control of what was going to happen, and fail or succeed, it didn't matter. It was just as long as it was my own choice. That I knew that I wanted to open an agency one day, but really it was a combination of working in agencies, seeing what went on behind the scenes, seeing these girls just destroying themselves mentally and physically in order to fit into the sample sizes. My sister Sky was a model at the time, and we hung out in a big group of models, and they'd eat lettuce leaves spread with a little bit of Vegemite for flavour, like all day. That would be what they ate all day. They'd crush up. They don't, thank God they've taken pseudoephedrine out of everything now, but they'd crush up, all the Sudafeds and cold and flu tablets and snort them and drink cans of Coke. And and I just thought, if that's what it takes to maintain that size, I am so not interested. Give me a steak and the red wine. I was just, once I saw behind the scenes of it all, I was actually really horrified. But I didn't feel like I had any power to do anything about it then, But it was probably another 8 years before I started Bella.
The way that people in the industry often talk about models can be quite dehumanising.
Absolutely.
You'd send your girls out on castings. And what was some of the feedback that you would get?
You send one girl to 10 clients and 5 of them will say no for various different reasons. She's too fat, she's too thin, she's too tall, she's too short, she's too this, her hair's not this, and blah, blah, blah. And then the other 5 will be like, oh, yeah, she's great, we'll keep her in mind. But to hear that, a lot of models email me personally and they say, can I, I've had a lot of problems with my body image and, eating disorders or whatever, and I'd love to be a model. And I'm always like, no, this is not the industry for you. I know you can change it through your own social media and stuff like that. You can start to, be popo, but this is not
Body positive.
yeah,
Bopo.
body positive. But this industry is rough.
It's so rough.
It's rough. You have to have a Teflon shield.
How did you feel when you didn't get jobs? Were you told to lose weight?
No, I had the opposite problem. I had trouble keeping weight on. So I was right on the cusp always of being almost not plus enough.
Because that's the dichotomy, isn't
Yes.
it? So in the fashion industry, you're either a size 6
Yep.
or you're a
16.
size 16.
Ideally, yeah.
So you were too big to be a model
Yeah.
of normal, regular, normal's the wrong word. What do you say? Of
straight size.
Straight size,
yeah.
and too small
Yeah.
to be plus size.
Yeah, bordering on too small to be
So
plus.
even when you're a plus size model, you still get rejected for not having the right body shape.
Yes, and so that's why when I opened Bella, I just opened, I didn't use the words plus size or anything. I just opened an agency for models between a size 10 and a size 20. That's it, because most women are a size 10 to 16. That's where 80% of women sit. Actually, sort of 67% sit in that wide range, and then 80% sit in the 14 to 16 range. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was just crazy to me that normal everyday size women were just not being represented anywhere, just anywhere. And we've come such a long way, and look, I'm so proud of the clients that have come on board with us.
Let's give them a shout out.
Yeah, so, Showpo and Sports Girl and Supre and Jeanswest have been, Jeanswest have been awesome. Tiger Lily, Lorna Jane has been just fantastic. Activewear and Curve would never have gone together ever in the past. So it's really coming a long way, and I'm so grateful to those guys for what they're doing. But we need more. We need more of it. So
what are some of the things that they'll tell you?
It's a lot
as
about
excuses.
As excuses, sample sizing.
Can you just take people through the sample size argument?
Okay, so the sample size argument is that retailers and designers can only sample in one size per season to send out for media shots. So they choose the smallest size possible for economic reasons, apparently. But it's been proven that it costs no more, or so little, like a couple of cents more, to make a garment in a size 14 as it does in a size 6. So that argument is completely ridiculous. But the other thing too is that it's just a old school, like they've got their block and they grade up from there. So they created their block around the original.
What's a block?
So block is the original sample size of, say a shirt. So they have a pattern for that shirt in a block size 8, sample size 8, and they use that block to grade up. So from that, the measurements of that block, that shirt size, they then grade up to as 10, 12, blah, blah, blah. So in order to change their sizing, they have to change their original block. And changing the original block actually takes quite a process. But it doesn't mean that, they can still use their original block, grade it up, and then cut it in a size 14.
Of course, which they do anyway
to sell.
To women who are bigger than a 14. So
that's rubbish. So, and I know a lot about it because I worked in fashion behind the scenes, in between jobs. I actually worked for Charlie Brown for years. And so I know exactly how everything's made. So when they come up with all these excuses, I can go back and go, well, actually,
So, Chelsea, you think the buck stops with fashion designers?
I think the buck stops with fashion designers, and then also the art directors and the fashion directors, who are the ones who have the power to make the designers change their samples. If they say, look, next season we are going to be including models size 10, 12, 14, 16 throughout the year in the magazine, and if you don't provide us samples in those sizes, we won't shoot you. We won't shoot you for the mag. They'll do it. They'll make them.
Yeah, because the whole point of making a sample size, and what people might not understand, and this was my biggest frustration when I got to Cosmo, and I called in my fashion director and I said, I want to do a shoot with a plus size model. And she came in and said, I can't get any clothes. And I went, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I know lots of people who aren't a size 8 and they wear clothes.
Yes.
And she said, well, obviously the clothes are made for them, but because magazines have to shoot 3 months in advance or 6 months in advance. So you're shooting summer clothes in winter, winter clothes in summer.
Yep.
You need to only use sample sizes.
Yep.
You can't use what's off the rack.
Yep.
And if the only sample sizes that are sent to you are size 8 and you cast a size 14 girl,
yes,
what's she going to wear?
Yeah.
And that was the biggest challenge I had in the 7 years that I was editing Cosmo.
Yeah.
That I just couldn't get those sample sizes. So we often had to use things off the rack, and it was then difficult because people saw them in the magazine and they couldn't get them anymore because they were from 6 months ago.
I know. It was really hard. But what you did with, the Cosmo Body Love, introducing that was so awesome. And, it was a bit rough in the beginning, but I used to always just warn the models. I'd say, look, they have real trouble getting sample sizes, so you'll often end up in a size 10 or something. Yeah. They might have to cut it, they might have to sticky tape it, they might have to, but this is just what it is at the moment. It'll change, but that's, I remember doing my first shoot for Cosmo. It was a lingerie shoot, Body Love kind of lingerie shoot, and I was in size 10, and I had to sort of like stand holding all my back fat sort of back.
Sorry.
And I couldn't move my boobs at all because I was a double D and it was like a 10C or something. So I was like, I had to sort of get in position and just hold all my fat and everything in.
Because my fashion editors hated doing it. And in those early days...
And I loved Panda and I loved her.
But the photographers sometimes wouldn't have their name on the shots in the early days. And
they
neither would the makeup artists.
They still do that now. Still do it, yeah.
And the other thing that was really different that I wanted to do was that... I was told when I said I want to shoot plus size, they went, oh, yeah, we do that once a year.
Yeah.
It's called our Big Gals shoot. Yeah. And we dress them in like cardigans and skivvies and, flat loafers. And I went, no, it's Cosmo. We're going to dress them the same way that we dress any other young woman.
I know.
Which is in the kind of clothes young women want to wear, not the kind of clothes their nanas wear.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, what do you mean you want to dress them in a sexy tight dress or lingerie or a swimsuit?
Yeah.
Oh, no, they can't wear a swimsuit. And I'm like, why not?
Exactly. And I mean, it was so amazing because it was right at that same time that I opened Bella, you introduced the Body Love, like about a year into Bella. We
were on the same page.
We were right on the same page, and we
were both well before Dove.
Well before everything. Well before everything. And and I was so freaking broke. I was so broke trying to run that business. And I was working nights and I was working weekends and I was selling shoes at Whitner on Darlinghurst Road at nights and weekends to pay money, and I was doing cash jobs for, stylists, ironing stuff and trying to keep the business going, and I was just so broke. And one of the things I was doing at the time was I was hiring the top photographers in Sydney that I could find, like Simon Upton and Michelle Holden and, really amazing photographers, Chris Coles, to shoot my models in a way that was young and fashionable and awesome. Yeah. But it was so expensive. It was so expensive. And, it really did. Like, there was a few times there I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm just not going to make it, And then when you did that, it took so much pressure off me because I didn't have to do it anymore because Cosmo was doing it.
And it wasn't expensive for us. Because for editorial, what people might not understand is that a model is paid, what's the day rate for editorial?
$180.
And it doesn't matter if you're Elle Macpherson or, Joanne Smith. It doesn't matter. Everyone gets $180. Yep. And that's before your commissions.
Yes.
And
you end up with $96 in your pocket.
Exactly. Yep. So the real money is to be made in advertising.
That's right.
So everybody does editorial cheaply because they're the beautiful sort of shots, and that's what you need for your portfolio,
that's right.
which then gets you the advertising jobs where the rate can be...
$3,000 a day, $10,000 a day, depending on the model. Yep.
Yeah. So that's how modelling works.
That's right.
And I can't even imagine... For you, it's about what jobs roll through the door. So I understand now there are jobs, but for a lot of years you must have done it super tough.
First 7 years of the business was horrific, and several times I thought, this is it. I'm not going to be able to...
What made you keep going?
It's such a passion of mine. It's just such a... it's a combination of watching close friends and family members going through severe eating disorders. You know, one of my best girlfriends died last year of heart failure after years and years and years and years of abusing food, and alcohol unfortunately normally goes hand in hand with eating disorders, alcohol or drugs. And you know, so there's just so many people in my personal life that struggle so much with it, and I just couldn't stop. I couldn't. It was like a compulsion. It was just, you know, I had to try to do something. I just had to keep going somehow. And, you know, many times I had to go back and take other jobs and, you know, work outside of the business to try and bring enough money in to keep the business going. And, you know, it was the first 7 years were really rough, really, really rough. So, but, you know, we got there. We finally turned a corner, thank God.
People will say that, and experts too, that seeing pictures of skinny models does not cause eating disorders.
That is not true, because, you know, for everybody that says that, there is so much evidence, so many studies to show that that is absolutely not true. That consistently seeing images of thin models held up as an ideal. If you're saying normal people doing normal things, walking down the street and they're thin, that's different. But when magazines and brands and advertising are, you know, are pushing this ideal of what you should look like in order to wear their brand or be a part of their gang, it's a very elitist attitude, and it's, you know, it directly affects the way people feel about themselves, you know, because they walk into the shop and they look up at the poster of this, you know, 15-year-old size 6 girl, and they're like, I can't wear that. I mean...
It's not smart business, is it?
It's not.
It's not smart business.
And this is where I just really don't get it. Just don't get it, you know. I mean, 100%, I know I say this all the time, but 100% of your marketing budget you're spending on 20% of the population and completely missing out on, I mean, that is the worst business model ever.
Tell me about meeting Robin.
She's, you know, Rob's has become like family over the years, you know, because I've repped her for, it's like 10 years now, so it's a long time. She went to a casting and the art director rang me afterwards and she said, look, I've just seen this girl. She's too big for mainstream fashion and she's, you know, her bone structure, you can tell she's not meant to be small. So I want to send her in to meet you. And she told Robin about me. And then Robin saw Abby Valdez, who's another one of my models, in a Cosmo shoot with Sophie Shepherd. And they did a shoot together for Cosmo.
I remember.
And Robin saw that and she was like, oh, okay. So this is a thing. So she talked to her sister about it and she said, just go meet her. So she came and I still was running the business from home at that time, and we just sat in the backyard with the dog and, you know, had a couple of cups of coffee and a chat. And she was obviously beautiful. I mean, the second she walked in, I went, holy shit, she is so...
You see a lot of women. What was it about her that you knew was something else?
It was a no-brainer that any fashion person would look at her and not have to imagine what she might look like in a shoot. They would be able to just see it straight away. And that's, you know, was such a gift for me. Because,
so how did you make it famous? What are the steps you took?
It's so, you know, with Robin, because she'd been so beaten down by other agencies and...
Who told her she was too big?
Too fat, and she, you know, was too tall and too fat and too this and too that. And so by the time she got to me, she was just beaten to a pulp, you know. Yeah. And I just said to her, look, for the next couple of months, I just want you to be you. Just be you, do your rock climbing, do your normal stuff, just eat normally, just do everything normally. Let's see what size you turn out to be, you know. Let's see what you are naturally. And that turned out to be 14, just naturally, you know, sometimes a 16 on the bottom depending on what it is, but that's just where she fell. And I was like, okay, great. Now, you know, it's kind of like, I know it sounds really weird, probably is really weird, but I think of my job like being a spider and I'm sitting at the top of the web and I've got to spin the webs to catch the flies I need in order to spin off another web to catch another fly. So when I'm putting together a girl's career map or an idea for their career, I know if I can crack this client, then I'll be able to crack that client, and then I'll be able to crack that client. And it's specific to each model because every model has a different, you know, a different client base that will be, you know, attracted to her. So that's really what it was.
What was the pathway for Robin?
For Robin, I knew it was editorial. That was gonna throw her into the overseas markets and the big limelight. So, and she was totally on board with, you know, she just handed, I think because she was so broken up by that point, she just handed over so much trust to me. Just gave it to me. I mean, it's been so much fun representing her because she really just allowed me to do everything I wanted to do as an agent without question. She never doubted that everything I was doing was in her best interest. And that's hard. That's a hard thing to do for anybody. I mean,
was it hard getting clients to see her at first?
At first it was. I lied about her age, her height for years.
How tall is she?
She's 6'2". So, but I lied and said she was just on 6 foot. She's just on 6 foot. She just looks tall.
Big hair.
Yeah. It's just those long legs, you know. And most of the time people knew I was lying, but she was so beautiful that by the time I got her in the door, they didn't care. They were like, okay.
Modelling is so much about not being enough. It's
I know.
You were too skinny to be a plus-size model, but she's too tall to be a model. Like,
I know. And it's the other way as well. I mean, one of my top models, Mercy, who works all over the world. She shoots all over the world. She lives in New York now. You know, she's one of the, you know, favourite picks for models in Australia. Whenever she's home here, everyone shoots her. And she's 5'7", but for years we had to lie and say she was 5'8" or 5'8.5" or something, you know, until her folio was strong enough that. But this is why it's so crazy. So
sometimes it's just about getting them in the door.
You just got to get them in the door, and you know, and the rest that's our job. Our job is to figure out what their market's going to be, who's going to connect with them, where they want to go, so that we can sort of try to direct that as well at the same time. And then we've just got to get them in the door. Once they're in the door, it's up to them because we can't do that part for them. So it doesn't always work because, you know, some models just don't have that personality to then pull it off, you know. So, but people don't realise modelling is really... it's like auditioning every day.
It is.
So,
and you've got to make small talk. And you've got to have chats. You've got
to be good with people.
Be good on shoots.
Yep. And you know, people like to work with people that make them feel good. So, you know, you've got to be on all day. And you know, if you don't have that natural sort of likability, it's very difficult. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are. It's very difficult to get clients to connect with you.
How did Robin take off overseas, and how did you not lose control of your golden goose as well as being a friend? She was also someone you'd invested a lot of time and money into.
I mean, I feel like it was just such a natural, I feel like we were just meant to meet, you know. The universe just threw us together for a reason. I wanted someone who would visually articulate what I was trying to say. I desperately needed somebody like that, and Robin desperately needed someone to believe in her and let her be herself. And so it was just like the universe just went, here you go, you guys belong together.
The fashion industry is notoriously fickle though, so I imagine all the people that rejected her then were in her ear going, oh, get rid of that Australian agent, come with us, we can, you know, you're the big time now.
Probably there may have been times people have said that to her. And she hasn't told me, but she's never ever, you know, mentioned that to me. I have really great relationships though with the agencies that I've placed her with, so I think that's really important too. They would never try to do that to me. There are other agents who have done that to me and tried to do that to me that I'm not as close to, but the agents I had placed Robin with were people I really, really trusted. So
that level of loyalty, I've heard Margot Robbie retains her Australian agent that she's had.
Yeah, I heard Nicole Kidman as well.
Yeah.
Had retained her manager from the start, and because it's a journey. It's such a huge journey to go on. You know, you're young, you're travelling the world, you need a touchstone, you need a base, you need someone, you know.
So what when you weren't there to say you're great the way you are? Like, I imagine there's still pressure to say, if you just lost some weight, I mean, I bet that's not the last. I bet she still heard that.
Yeah. And then, and then recently, since she's had the baby, she lost quite a lot of weight running around after a toddler and not eating properly and working like a maniac. And she dropped, a bit of weight for a while there. She's back to her normal size now. And then she got crucified for that. She needs to put on weight. So clients wouldn't book her because she wasn't full enough. And clients, it was just, But like I said to her, it's just, we just find the right clients for you.
Sports Illustrated's swimsuit edition, or Sports Illustrated, did a runway show earlier this year.
Yep.
And there was very predictable backlash saying that using plus-size models promotes obesity.
Yes. Again.
Tell me, without screaming, how to respond to that, because it's a tired old one that's trotted out regularly.
Look, I mean, I was interviewed by the Project for that, and by the time that went to air that night, the doctor that came out, whatever his name is, I can't even remember because it was so stupid, had retracted basically everything he said that day.
But it's an argument that's made.
It's an argument. Look, I've been hit with that since I started Bella.
Yeah.
I'm promoting obesity, I'm promoting people being unhealthy, I'm promoting this, I'm promoting that. And I just say to people, come work out with my girls. Let's go to the gym. I'll ring Today Tonight or A Current Affair and you guys can go work out together and we'll see. Not one person has taken me up on that offer.
Oh, because that's not a good story.
No.
That you can be fit and not...
Exactly. I've got girls who are size 16, 18 running marathons, So, I mean, it's not... Weight is not a predictor of health. It's just not. And there's just as many sick, thin people as there are sick, bigger people. It's the same complication either end. Like, if you are too thin or you are morbidly obese... It's the same illnesses that you get, basically. It's just, reverse directions, but the illnesses are the same. Bone problems, heart problems, digestive issues, sleeping problems, all of those things are exactly the same. So, and that's why I choose to work in the middle, which I get hammered for all the time, because I'm not really promoting body diversity because I won't go over a certain size. And I'm like, well... I wouldn't go under a certain size either because what I'm trying to do is promote health, or, realistic health. That's health is beauty. Beauty is health. That's our whole message. Yeah. And so I get, hate mail from people who say, why don't you have anybody over a size 20 on your books? And it's like, well, I haven't yet met anyone over a size 20 who is healthy, I've met girls who come in and they're struggling, and you can see they're sweating and they're struggling to move properly. They're carrying too much weight for their frame. And on the other side, I've seen really thin girls the same, barely be able to walk in the door because they're so starved. They're exhausted and grey and sweating just from the exertion from getting to the car to the office because of lack of food. So, and do you know what? It's my business, so I can do whatever the I like, quite frankly. If you want to go do that, then you go do it. And that's another thing I say. Like, well, you want me to solve all the world's problems? If you feel that passionate that you're going to get on and harass me on Facebook every day and call me names, go start your own bloody agency and go do that.
Are there people? Of course,
leave me alone.
People. I was going to say, are there people like that? But of course,
there are. Yeah. We've had to block so many people. I mean, half my life is blocking idiots off our social media.
Are you encouraged about where we're at the moment in terms of diversity
and
portrayal in the media compared to when you and I started out?
Oh, absolutely. My God, like back then it was really like hitting your head against a brick wall. It was just painful. Trying to get a job for the girls was just so painful. I'm really proud of how far it's come. I think the Australian market's doing really well. We just need to see a little bit more of it.
Lots of love. You're a legend.
Thanks, mate. So
You're
good to see you.
Legend.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. What a woman. If you want to find out more about Chelsea and Bella Management, head to bellamanagement.com.au or find them on Instagram. They were our partners over summer in our #MammaMiaSummer campaign, where we featured a lot of Bella management models and all sorts of women, including maybe you, of all shapes, sizes, ages and skin colours at the beach with their bodies, showing that a beach body is as simple as having a body and being at the beach. In other news, did you know that over 40,000 people are subscribed to No Filter? And in December, we had our biggest download month ever. If you are one of our subscribers, well, if you aren't one of our subscribers, why aren't you one of our subscribers? You don't want to miss a single episode of No Filter. And once you've subscribed, or if you are already, please leave us a review and tell us why you like the show, what your favourite episode was. It's how other people find the show, and sharing is caring and caring is sharing. If you like this episode with Chelsea, then there's another one that I suggest you check out. There's a conversation I had in 2017 with one of my role models and a feminist columnist, body image activist that I admire hugely and was stoked to meet when she came to Australia. I interviewed her in front of the whole Mamamia team because everybody was super, super keen to see her in person. And that's Lindy West. She's a brilliant writer and she's a fantastic advocate for positive body image. So scroll back through the feed to find the Lindy West episode of No Filter. The producer of this and every episode of No Filter since it began is Eliza Ratliff. I am Mia Friedman. You can find me. I'm running Mamamia's Instagram account these days, Mamamia AUS. Or else I'm just an Instagram monster. I'm running Mamamia's account. I'm running the Lady Startup account. And of course, I'm running my own account. So if you're interested in some more body positivity and some feel-good inspiration, come get a bit of feel-good into your feed on Mamamia, Mia Friedman or Lady Startup. I will see you next time.